Cool. How are you doing, everyone? Welcome to the best real estate investing advice ever showed via Facebook Live, and we will go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, then as always, comment in the section below this video, and if we're able to get to them on this show, we will, and if we're not able to, then we'll get to them on next week's show. Ready to go?
Let's do it, Joe.
Best ever listeners, how you doing? Welcome to the best real estate investing advice ever show. I'm Joe Fairless. This is Follow Along Friday, where we talk about our entrepreneurial ventures. I am with the co-host on Fridays, Theo Hicks. Hello, Theo.
How's it going, Joe?
It's going well, and we've got an eclectic show today, all focused on real estate. We've got how to find the sources when looking up market data. We're going to talk about a mistake that Theo told me he made on a deal, I believe, that you're working on. I don't know what it is. We're going to be talking about some investor or some listener questions that you have, and also how we got our hand slapped for last week's episode and how I think that was good feedback, and I'm glad we did get our hand slapped for the approach we took last week and how we're approaching it differently this week and moving forward. So with that being said, what do you want to tackle first?
Well, we also wanted to mention a new resource we have on the website, a book list. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I get questions a lot about what books do you recommend, and so we decided to create an exhaustive book list. It's on joefairless.com, and in one of the headers there's my Recs or Joe's Recs. Mm-hmm. Just click that and you've got books for apartment investing that I've read, books on mindset, books on sales and negotiation, and books on entrepreneurship. All of those 4 categories are relevant to what we do, and those books again can be viewed at my website, and just go to Joe's Recs and there's a bunch of books there.
Perfect. So let's jump into my mistake that I made so I can get that out of the way. It's a very silly mistake, probably a rookie mistake, but so right now I'm currently under contract for 3 4-unit properties, mm-hmm. and I underwrote the deals originally based off of the pro forma that the listing agent had sent me. I know. And I was sent the Schedule E and the leases after I had under contract, and I looked at them and I realized that what they did is they took, because each unit has two bedrooms and 2 1-bedrooms, and the rents that they used in the pro forma were the highest rents for the 1-bedrooms, for the 1-bedroom, and the highest rent for the 2-bedroom. So the 2-bedroom that's rented at the highest and the 1-bedroom that's rented at the highest was the rent they had listed on the pro forma, which is what I used for my calculations. And so I looked at the leases and I was like, wait a minute, these rents are not even close to what they said they were on the pro forma. And so I guess the advice would be, and this is an obvious advice, but don't underwrite based off of the pro forma. Make sure that you either look at the Schedule E or the T12, trailing 12, I believe.
Current rent roll.
The Schedule E wasn't necessarily a current rent roll or a financial statement. It was just their tax form. Yeah. And so just had how much income they had coming in through rent, plus all their expenses for the year, but it wasn't broken out on a month-by-month basis. But yeah, a rent roll if it's a large property. But for mine, I just looked at the leases and saw that they were all lower. Now, I guess the plus is that all the rents that are below the highest number are all month to month. And so I guess transitioning, I had a question for you today, and I think this can apply to all real estate, but when you're buying a large multifamily property or a small property that's got multiple units, how do you go about raising the rents without overwhelming yourself with a bunch of vacancies or things like that?
We do it as soon as we take over a property. By the way, we just closed on a property this past Friday. That's another kind of cool thing.
Well, congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And how we do it, immediately as soon as we close, our management team is outside the gate we give them the okay, and then they come into the property and they immediately start renovating the vacant units. They also start working on any CapEx projects that the lender requires, but that's a separate thing. So we immediately renovate the vacant units, and then once we have those renovated, we're able to start charging a premium and start testing our hypothesis of what type of premium rents we can get for the property. Now, if we have people living there, so in your case, I mean, you've got, 12 units, so you probably have them all filled?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In that case, we do it on unit turns. And since all your people are on month to month, you're just going to have to look in a spreadsheet and figure out what does your cash flow support in terms of frequency of doing those rent increases, knowing that you're probably going to have a lot of people move out depending on how much of an increase that is. With our properties, they tend to be on 12-month leases. So we just do it on unit turns.
Okay.
When your lease is up, you have the option of staying and living in a nicer apartment, or you have the option of moving out, depending on what you want to do. And if they decide to stay, we're able to renovate the unit in 3 to 5 days, depending on the extent of the rehab. But we've got a well-oiled machine on a couple thousand apartments. On a 12 unit, I imagine you'll have. You're not doing any renovations yourself, are you? Okay. You have a property management company?
No, I'm managing it myself.
You're managing it yourself. But you're not. Your plan is not to renovate the units. It's just simply hold serve and.
Yeah. So currently the units themselves, they're fine. Like every single unit is basically the exact same. Like they're all the exact same counters. They're all the exact same cabinets, floors. Everything is the exact same. It's just all the rents are different just because of the previous property management. And so we're not going to go in there and renovate anything. We're just kind of confused as to how to approach raising the rents to market value. Because I mean, here's our plan. Our plan is to go one unit at a time, starting with one building, and like every month go to this person and say, hey, we're gonna raise your rents to $600 for the 1 bedrooms and $750 for the 2 bedrooms. And they say that's fine, then they can stay. And if not, they move out, and we'll clean it up and put someone in there right away.
Yeah, it's just a numbers game, in addition to testing what response you're getting with those rents, because it's an art and a science. You're going to deal with people who will immediately move out, or you deal with people who are like, I can't pay this, but I can pay this, so you'd be willing to do that, and you're just going to have to make a judgment call. So my recommendation would be to start with 2 units that are month to month, have that conversation with them, see if they both move out. Okay, what does that do to your bottom line? Can you support that mass exodus to continue, or do you need to rent those units and then move on to the next one? That's really all it is.
I like the idea of doing 2, just because I know someone who owns a property in this area. And I don't want to get too much detail, but he had 1 unit vacant, and when he marketed it at a rent higher than what I'm going to market mine at, and his is located right around the corner, he had like 10 people respond, and he was kind of choosing between 3 or 4 at the end. And so I was thinking, so if we do that, and let's say we get, as to say I list the rent at the number I want to get, and I've got 12 people responding, I could technically have all 12 of those people take all the units that I have in there at the higher number. And so that's why I like the idea of doing 2 at first, testing it, and if we get a bunch of responses, either kind of put them on the back burner and say, hey, if you don't need to move in for 2 months, I'll have a unit available for you in 2 months from now, and then raise someone else's rent and see if anybody else leaves. But that was just an idea I was toying with, because I didn't want to have all this demand and not be able to fill it, because I'm keeping tenants that are paying a little bit less.
Yep. And holy cow, Theo, pro forma.
I know.
Pro forma.
I know. I knew the agent, and I trusted him. I should have done that.
Well, I mean, it's always, we always need the current rent roll. We just go off of that. But they were off market deals. They were hot. you had to act quickly, and the numbers still make sense, I guess?
Yeah, the numbers still make sense.
Okay. All right, they still make sense. You'll be fine. It's
Yeah.
12 units. It's different if this was a 150 unit and that mistake happened, and you're doing this on a larger scale. So it's good to knock out the cobwebs with this one. I'm glad it still makes sense.
Yeah.
And when are you closing? July
8th.
July 8th.
There's some weird financing going on right now, so we might only be able to close on 2, and then we'll have to close on the second one or the third one like a couple weeks later, just based off of how this specific lender underwrites. And I think he said something along the lines of, when you are buying a property, in the process of buying it, he only takes into account like 75% of the income as income when doing the debt to income ratio. But once you buy it, it's 100%. And so since we're doing 3, he said that the calculation comes out where we can only buy 2 with our current income versus all 3. And so I was kind of confused on that. But in July, we're going to be closing on these properties.
Okay. And I know a listener / a friend of mine / an investor sent me an email to forward to you about his thoughts on your situation.
Yes.
Did you reply to him?
I did.
Okay, good.
So what he said is, so I mentioned the podcast that me and Marcella, my girlfriend, are going to co-sign on all loans, just for a alignment of interest, and that's just what we decided to do. And what he was saying is that when you do that counts as a loan for you and a loan for me. So it's not like it's half a loan for you,
her,
half a loan for me. Yeah, assuming I'm talking to you as if you're Marcella.
Yeah.
And so what he was saying is that it might make sense to put all the loans in her name, so that she'll have these 3 loans in her name, which means she has, for the specific lender, you can do up to 10 loans. So she'd have 7 loans left, and I'd have 10 full loans left. And what he was saying was that, when he first started off, he was like, it doesn't matter. We're not going to get 20 loans. But then once he got to the point where he needed 20 loans, he's like, man, I wish I would have done that. So that was his recommendation, and unfortunately, we are going to have to go. We're going to have to both put our names on both of these for this round, just because we're already in the process, and it'll take too long to get the loans through. But moving forward, we're going to put them in our individual names.
Good advice.
So thanks for that advice.
Yeah, thanks, John. Wait.
Okay, so now we've got a listener question about market data, and so the question wasn't about what the factors are that you look at, but how do you find trustworthy information? And so we have I guess I'll run through the factors that we look at, and correct me if I'm wrong anywhere. So we look at 6 different factors, and we've got a spreadsheet that we put all these in. So number 1, we look at unemployment, specifically the unemployment change over 5 years, and we look at population, specifically the population change over 5 years, and this is the city population that you're investing in, but also the overall MSA population. We also look at the population age to see who's moving here and who's leaving, so that's a 5-year change as well. We look at job diversity, and so we want to make sure that not one industry that's dominating the job, because obviously that happens, and if that goes away, that market's in trouble.
The biggest discrepancy I've seen is 18% in Dallas-Fort Worth makes up the largest industry, which is the lowest I've seen, and Las Vegas was 27 or 28% with hospitality. So I would prefer not to be above 23% or so, and I'm arbitrarily saying 23, so it's plus or minus, but just based on what I've seen across many markets, you want to be 23% or less with any one industry. That way, if that industry starts to tank, you've got other industries to pick up the slack and still have your residents employed.
Yep. And then along that line, we look at the top 10 employers as well. It's similar to the job diversity, but it lets you know what the big employers are, and you kind of can compare that to where your unit, your property is, and figure out who your tenant base is going to be. And then the last one, number 6, is supply and demand. And so what we look at there are the vacancy rates. So again, for all of these, it's you look at the actual number for the most recent year, but then we want to look at the 5-year change as well to see if it's trending up or down. And then finally, we look at the number of 5+ unit permits that were submitted that year to see how many buildings are being made. So the vacancy is kind of the demand, and then the supply would be the number of units created. Now, where do we get this data from? So for most of this stuff, we actually just get it from the census. And so the census has all the information you're ever going to need about market data. And all you have, what I like to use, and what I think is the most simple, is you go to their fact finder, and it allows you to just type in your city, and then it'll just have a column of all the different economic status and population and demographics, and it'll give you everything you need on the side, and you just click on what you want. If you wanted to do age and see what age and the vacancy rate, you can do that. It'll create data tables for you, and then you just click on the data tables, and it shows you all those facts, and it easily allows you to just export it all to Excel. And if you know how to use very, very basic Excel functions like sorting, then you should have no problem whatsoever sorting the data and figuring out what these 5-year trends are. So for everything that I mentioned, we get all of it from the census.
And that's census.gov.
Census.gov, yes. And the only thing that's not easily found in the fact finder, the only thing that took me some time to find was the 5+ permits created, but it's still on the census website. You just have to do a little bit of extra searching. And if you're interested in wanting a direct link to that, I'll just put a direct link to that one in the show notes for the podcast and on YouTube, because that one took me a while to find. Now, something else that we look at as well are the overall yearly market data that these certain companies put together, and it's just like a massive document that has focuses on commercial real estate, and it'll focus on different markets, different types of commercial real estate, and just kind of talk about what they're expecting for the year and comparing it to last year, and what markets are hot. And that one's very interesting too, because it kind of compiles all the census data for all markets into one. And so if you're just starting out and don't necessarily know where to invest, you can go on there and kind of look at what the top markets are.
What's there? What specific?
Yeah. So the two that we use are, it's called IRR.com. I'm not sure what IRR stands for, but they have a really good packet. And then we also use the Marcus and Millichap document. So these are like 100-page documents, but they have a lot of information. And whether you're just starting out or you're trying to find a new market, I would definitely recommend reading those just in general. Just get an idea of what market data you should be looking at and what factors you should be looking at, and how they calculate what markets are the best and what industries are up and coming and which ones are kind of going downhill, and they talk about loan stuff, and it's very interesting, and it goes into extreme detail.
Cool. There you go. There's the answer.
So the last question we had was about how to find money for deals, and we get that question a lot. And so what I'm going to do, if you go to our YouTube channel, just type in how to raise money, private money for your deals. We have like 3 or 4 videos on there. So this was a question by Jeff M. And again, this one we get a lot too, and we've got some YouTube videos on there that explain this. So just type in how to raise private money for your deals, either in YouTube, or you can go to multifamily syndication.com,
yep,
and you'll find those there as well.
Cool. Okay. And as far as getting our hand slapped, there was what was her?
Keone.
Keone sent us a message after last Friday's Follow Along Friday, and Keone said something like,
I got that exact
why
quote
don't you read it?
A third of the show is talking about sports.
Sports was all caps, I think, too.
Yeah. And at the end, there was a point, but Lord, it took forever to get there.
I hear you loud and clear. We got off track. I got a little excited about playing basketball against Theo and losing every time and trying to beat him. We got off track. This is a no-fluff show, so we will keep it focused on real estate, and it's always good to get constructive feedback, because you could have worded it in a much meaner way, and I appreciate you not saying it in a meaner way. I appreciate you being constructive about it. So I hear you. That being said, we're gonna play after this. We're gonna play after this. If you got the score, then and who wins, then we're giving away a free book. If whoever's the closest to score, playing to 13, win by 1, have to win by 2, and so just say who's gonna win and the total score, and you will get an autographed book, or volume 1 and volume 2 from us. whoever's the closest. And we had a winner this past week. Theo, what was the score?
13-8.
13-8. Theo beat me last week, 13-8. I'm getting closer and closer. I beat him in horse, and I got smoked on the last game, 13-2. Oh, God. 13-2. Yeah, 13-2. So maybe I'm regressing. Who knows? But I got a secret weapon coming up on this next
Can't wait.
game. Yeah, I've been practicing. Okay, anything else?
No, do you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
I don't believe I do. I hope you enjoyed the show, best ever listeners. Have a wonderful rest of your week or weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.